Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us again today at Just Talking Business. I am Stephanie Van Vark, and I am a small business owner. And today we are on part 2 of our discussion about business development. And today's conversation is about Inception. We will be welcoming again with us Jermaine Jones, who is the expert in this arena. So let's get started. How are you today?
Hey, good morning. How's it going?
This is Jermaine Jones from the Burdham Group. And once again, I want you to notice he's outside in the sunshine. You blame him, don't blame me. So thank you again for coming and welcome. And we've got a lot to get to today. A lot of information that you're sharing. So let's get started so that we will be able to share with everyone. So there were a couple of questions that came up and we actually put them on the flyer. So we'll start with the first one. What is the best structure for your business? I know this is a good question that many people want to know when they're in the startup phase. Sorry about my necklace. Go ahead and share with us your thoughts around what people should be thinking about when they're looking at what the structure of their business should be.
So I would say there are different initially there are some fundamental business structures. So most folks should look at initially either being a sole proprietor or a limited liability company. There are other business structures, but most startups and businesses in their infancy start in either one of these two stages. So sole proprietor. Sole proprietor is someone that's an individual, don't have any in place, it's just themselves, right? Mm-hmm. When the person dies, the business dies. So let's say a person that has a lawn service, right? Let's say Mr. James Lawn Service. And Mr. James is the only person, is the only employee that works for Mr. James Lawn Service. Mm-hmm. Mr. James doesn't need to register Mr. James because that's his government name. He's an individual owner. So he doesn't need to register that with the state. He doesn't need to register it with the federal government. And when I say register with the federal government, what I'm saying is registering an EIN number. Okay. Because Mr. James' social security number will work as his IRS identifier. Okay. But I will say if there is some type of occupational license that's needed to do whatever business the individual is doing, that is needed. That would be something that's already registered if it's something that the state's regulating.
Even as a sole proprietor.
Even as a sole proprietor, if it's something that your specific state regulates, mm-hmm. You're going to have an occupation license to do it.
Okay.
So a barber, right? That's something that's regulated in the state of Florida. I can't really speak for other states. That's something that's regulated in the state of Florida. So in that instance, you would need a barber's license.
An occupational license would be attached to the person, not the business.
Right. Yes. Okay. The occupation license is always attached to the person for the most part.
Okay.
So when we talk limited liability company, I just want to I'll go through what that means, and I'll also dispel a myth that's out there when it comes to limited liability companies. Mm-hmm. So limited liability company can be an individual it can be an individual or it can be multiple individuals. In most cases, the limited liability status aim is to limit the liability of the business owner. And I'll come back to that just because there's a myth that I want to address. Mm-hmm. But also with the limited liability company, you also would need, if the state regulates whatever it is you're doing, you're gonna need the occupation license. And the difference between a limited liability company and a corporation per se is that you're not required to have annual management meetings or stockholder meetings. Mm-hmm. The next series we'll talk about.
With the limited liability, you're not required. With the corporation, you are. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So this series we won't really talk about the other partnerships because they're a lot more advanced in the business life cycle. So those are the two that most entrepreneurs and business owners start their structure with. But I'll venture to say that limited liability company is the business structure that a great majority of companies structure under. The myth I want to dispel or provide some clarity on is most folks think that if you are a limited liability company, that it truly limits your liability from creditors and lawsuits and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But it does on its face. But what creditors and the like do to get around that is they make you personally guarantee, a credit line or a loan, or if you're financing, inventory on debt, they make you personally guarantee it. Once you personally sign as the guarantor, once you personally sign as the guarantor, the limited liability protection in essence goes away.
Okay.
Because they come after you personally, despite the fact that you guaranteed the debt for a limited liability company.
And so, and that was one of my questions, because I'd always heard that limited liability, you are absolved of anyone being able to sue you, kind of thing, versus
Right.
sole proprietor, they can't.
Right.
But either way, you really are the person that is assuming the responsibility on behalf of the company. Okay.
Yes, you personally guarantee whatever debt. You signed as a grantor.
So now here's the thing. What's the difference in the cost?
Well, in the state of Florida, well, let me say this, because I just want to be general when I say this. When you're registering as a limited liability company, the state usually has a fee, a registration fee. Mm-hmm. When you're a sole proprietor, there's no fee because there's no registration process.
Gotcha. Okay.
So each state has a different dollar amount. So I didn't want to give Florida's dollar amount, and folks think, hey, it's applicable to all states. Each state has a dollar amount. But a blanket response to that question is, as a sole proprietor, you don't have to register, so you don't have any fees, versus if you structure a limited liability company in the state level.
And every year you have an annual report you have to update.
Yeah, every year.
Liability versus a sole proprietor.
Yeah. Right, every year, usually between the months of January. Well, every year in the state of Florida, it's between the months of January to May.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And should you apply for this yourself, or can you apply for this yourself, or would it be better for you to seek assistance from an attorney?
Well, I think it all depends on your comfort level, your education level. When I say education level, I'm not saying necessarily like college degree, but if you're the type of person that can research information and understand information fairly well, it's something you can do yourself.
Okay.
But if you're apprehensive, of course, seek someone out that knows what they're doing.
Okay. And is it a long and tedious process, or can it be something that's done fairly quickly?
Well, I've done a lot of incorporations in the process of providing business consulting for clients all across the country, and it's been a very straightforward process. Every state, for the most part, that I've registered a business in has had a streamlined process where you do it online, and some states take longer than others, but usually you fill out the form, pay the fees. A couple of days go by in some states, a couple weeks go by in other states, and they notify you that the registration have gone through. But I will say, if in most states, if your business name is similar to a business that's already established in the state, they're going to kick back. They're going to deny your registration.
Okay.
And as you know, and at that point, you have to change the name, tweak the name to something acceptable by the registration office.
Okay. So that brings us to our next question: why must my business have a name? And you were talking a lot about your name. So.
Okay. So if you're a sole proprietor, you're using your government given name to operate your business. But if you're an incorporation, if you incorporate, you will have to come up with some type of business name to act as the business identifier. So there are two things. You could register an LLC in the name that you want to do business, or you could develop a fictitious name that you want to do business under. So I've had clients to just simply register a fictitious name and assume that put them in business without actually doing a business registration. So I want to spend a little time here just to explain the whole fictitious name. Some of you may know it as doing business as DBA,
Mm-hmm.
but it's fictitious name, DBA. Those terms are used interchangeably. So if you decide to, let's say you got some partners and you guys want to go into business together, and you guys want to have, a company that you guys can't really decide the name. Well, let's say if you guys use your initials and it was TMC LLC, which the initials are the acronym for the three partners' last names. You guys can do TMC LLC, doing business as, you know, super television mania, right? So that's one reason why you may use a fictitious name. Another reason you may use a fictitious name is because someone already has your LLC name, right? So if someone already has your LLC name, most times you can still use that name, but you just can't register as an LLC. You would have to register as a DBA.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So from a technical side, when doing a DBA, it allows for you to use a name that's already taken at the LLC, but it also allows for folks to identify who the real company is. Remember, a fictitious name is a fake name, right? So in the effort not to deceive the public, it's always attached to an LLC.
Okay.
So to me, the number one thing that should have been number one on this list, before we talked about incorporate fictitious name, is really identifying a name of your company where you can own all the marketing, branding properties.
Right.
So when I say branding and marketing properties, I'm talking about the domain name, the social media handles, and logo design, right? So I want to start with the website domain, right? Nothing's worse than a business being marketed to the public as a certain name and the domain being something totally different.
Right, exactly. I agree with that.
Right. Or the social media handles being something totally different, right?
Yeah.
Or the logo, when you design the logo and you send it to the trademark office, the trademark office kicks back the application because someone else already has a logo that's comparable to the logo that you're trying to get them to trademark. Right. So to me, this is probably the most vital thing of the business, because this is what the public will see, your brand and marketing, right? So the ideal is for you to own all the marketing and branding properties. So the business name, if it's Super TV Mania, the logo, the website domain has to be something in that genre. The social media handles have to be something in that genre. The logo design has to be something in that genre, right? The email platforms that you use has to match that name.
Right. Well,
so
let me ask you, how do you find out? Is there a way that you've got this name up here? How do you figure out if somebody's already using it?
So you got to do the research. You have to actually say, hey. So what I tell folks, and it's kind of jump into a name likability, which is the next point we're going to discuss. So I'm going to wrap it all into one. So what I tell clients is, hey, come up with 10 names, right? Mm-hmm. Come up with 10 business names that you like, right? That's comparable to your business idea, right? So when someone says the name of this business, we can over time build a brand to where it assimilates to whatever product or service that you're selling. Right. So I tell folks, come up with 10 names, because what's going to happen is when we start doing the search for the web domain, social media handles, and logos, we may have to come up with another 10.
That happened to me.
Because what we may find is that we can't get all of the properties that we need for marketing and branding, right? Mm-hmm. Or you may come up with 10 names and I say, you know what, these names aren't synonymous with the product or service that you're selling. So it's a process, but most business owners come up with one name. This is what I want to name it. And then when we do the search for the likability, right? And folks say, well, that name doesn't match your products or service.
Right.
Right? That name doesn't match your branding. That name is not available on the web domain.
Mm-hmm.
That name is not available on social media handles. That name and that logo concept design, the trademark office is going to trademark it.
Right.
So to me, you know, if I could have it my way, I would tell any business owner that needs to be the number one thing, right? You do. Number two, like we discussed last week, risk should be number one. Should be the first question that a business owner, entrepreneur should ask themselves. Mm-hmm. Secondly, is the name,
right?
Because you can spend a lot of time. You have a lot of businesses out there right now that don't own all the marketing and branding handles of their business. So it's kind of they're all over the place.
Right. And you can't really find them and identify them because when you're Googling, they don't pop up in the stratosphere.
Exactly. Right. Or the name doesn't really is not synonymous with the product or service.
That I see a lot of that. You know, people with and even I would say I started out with the name. My formal business name is Venbart Creative Enterprises. Well, don't nobody know what that means. So, right. That ain't helpful. Right. Come up with a DBA that I'm now going to formally make my formal name. I'm in the process right now, but I thought about it, saying that doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Right. If you meet a customer, you got to explain the name of your business and how it relates to the service and product that you're offering. You're dead in the water.
Man, clearly.
Right.
So yeah, that happens a lot. But let me go back to a question with the sole proprietor. Do they have to use their name, or can they have a name of sorts?
Well, if they're not going to use their name, because this is the thing, right? So it's all about consumer protection.
Right.
So when you're providing a product or service, it's all about protecting the customer from being abused by the service and product provider. So there has to always be some type of way for the product service provider to be contacted or reached or identified.
Okay.
So if we're using Stephanie Lawn Care Service, they can find you because they can just look up your social security number.
Oh.
So there she is, right?
Right.
So when you're a company, if they're unable to find you, then it's kind of like you're a phantom.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, which brings us to the other identifier with regards to the EIN. But no, finish what you were saying, and then
Right, I was going to say, so no one wants to. I was going to say that's where kind of like the shell corporation thing come from, where folks try to historically, shell corporations were used to hold stock, right? But what some folks have done was use it to hide assets and hide themselves.
Oh, meaning a corporation to hide themselves in the asset.
Yeah.
Oh. Who knew? Who has time to think through all that stuff?
Trust me, I've had clients that we've done that for.
Oh wow! We'll talk about that later. I want to hear more about that. Right. So that takes us to the EIN number. I've been told, and I do have one, that's sort of the social security number for the business. So please expand.
Yeah. So that's exactly what it is, right? So as from a sole proprietor standpoint, the IRS will use a social security number.
Uh-huh.
When you have a business or corporation, the IRS will use your tax ID number, EIN, employment identification number, right? Mm-hmm. That's because you have EIN, and you have folks say, "Oh, do I need to get a tax number? A tax ID." So the tax ID and EIN, same thing. Why they call it about two different names and why it's out there in the IRS material, I have no idea, but it's the same thing, right? So just so that we're clear, tax ID and EIN number is the same. So at the state level, depending on the type of business, you will have the Department of Revenue of that state will also issue you a number.
Okay.
Just FYI. So um, a lot of small business owners don't pay state sales tax um, because the state really doesn't have the manpower to go after everyone that's doing business in the state making money.
But how do they get
But
away with that?
what was that?
How do you get away with not paying state taxes?
Hey, they don't have staff to go after it. I mean, there are a lot of things that the IRS don't do that they could do to people. They just don't have the manpower. It's really like, what do we spend the manpower going after the a lot of people where we won't get a return on the man hours that we put in. There's just too many people for them to go after and to keep up.
No, I wonder though, how could a company get away with not paying your taxes, or not paying your state taxes?
Well, technically, depending on how good your accountant is, you're not getting away with anything.
That'll do it.
They're using the system.
Now, can you get your own EIN number, meaning where you could apply for it yourself, or is that something you would probably need an expert to help you with?
Again, it's on your comfort level, but I will say it's a process because I have had clients who registered the business, didn't hear back from the state, got an EIN number, and got their application rejected from the state. So, yeah.
What do you do then?
Well, we had to.
That's tricky.
Well, not really, because the state never rejected the state never accepted the business registration.
Right.
So the tax ID number that's attached to a business that don't exist, it's just out there.
Okay. Well, can you now reapply with a new name and use the same EIN tax number, or
no. You got to do the entire process.
Okay. Now you know.
So that's a part of it. I was debating whether or not I would bring this aspect of it up. So another aspect in the same regard is if you have a business and there are multiple partners and you elect to file S corporation paperwork, what that does is tell the federal government from a tax standpoint, and you do the S corp paperwork after you file for the EIN.
Okay. Yes.
So after you receive the EIN, you file the S corp paperwork to let the federal government know that me and Stephanie, we're running this business, we're partners, we're responsible for 50% of paying taxes on the revenue and 50% of paying, writing off the expenses.
Okay.
But that paperwork is filled out after the EIN number is issued.
Okay. So next we are, and this was actually, I have to say, this was one of the trickiest things when I was a small business. We talk about municipal business tax receipts.
Right.
And if you are to use just Miami-Dade County, that in and of itself can be a beast. Right. Because you got the city and you got the county and you got to be beholden in the boat. So break that down for us as to which, why, what for, how much does it cost, all the things.
So I'm going to merge the two together, right? And the reason I'm laughing so hard is because I have so many clients that are registered for one, but not registered for the other. So when the inspector comes, there's this big blow up and argument about, I'm licensed to register. I'm licensed to work in Dade County. So the city sits in the county. So why I got to pay twice? Right.
And I was like, wait, what? What have I got? And then the cost from the city to the county is so different for the same thing. And you're like, why?
Right. So what happens is, okay, let's just get the geography out of the way. Every municipality sits in a county municipality. Period.
Right.
Okay. So if you're doing business in a municipality, you're going to have to pay the municipality business tax receipt and the county's business tax receipt. So here it is again. I don't understand why they call it a business tax receipt when really it's a business license. It's a license to do business in the city municipality and a license to do business in the county.
Mm-hmm.
You must have both if your business is located in a municipality.
Now, what if you're in an unincorporated area? Is it just the county?
So if you're in an unincorporated area, it's just the county.
Okay.
It's just the county. So
that's where we need to move to.
Right. So why is that important, right? So it's important for several reasons, right? I guess the most important reason it's important because you can't technically operate in a city municipality or county municipality without the license.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a brick and mortar location, you will not get issued your occupancy license. You will not get issued your accessory use license without having the city and the county. And they will take your money without telling you that, hey, you need to be registered with the county. So I've had a client that registered with the city municipality, thought everything was great. The county showed up and wouldn't issue the occupancy license.
Because they had not registered with the county.
They had not registered with the county, right? They had not registered with the county. And technically they didn't exist in the county. So they registered with the state, right? So they were legally able to work in the state, right? They registered with the city. They were legally able to work in the city, but the problem is the city is located in the county.
Right. And you're not doing your part for the county.
Right. So if you have a brick and mortar location, you can't get the license you need to open up the business without having these business tax receipts, basically the business license.
And this is thing for Miami-Dade County, right? This is all.
What was that?
This is all over the country. This is all over the country.
All over the country. All over the country.
Okay.
So another benefit to having these licenses, the fact that sometimes the city municipality gets money from the federal government to help aid small business, so in the form of grants. So you can't apply for grants without being a legal business in the city limits. So a legal business in the city limits is, being a registered business with the state of Florida and having this business, these business licenses for the county and the city.
Mm-hmm.
And it works both ways. The county works the same way, where you need to have the business, license for the county to participate in any of the county grants that they have for small businesses. The third thing, the third reason to have, that you would need to have these licenses, the fact that sometimes city, county government do set asides when it comes to bidding preference. Right. So if you're registered as a minority disadvantaged business, you have set asides that you can apply for that are set aside by city, county, municipalities in regards to providing them with products and services that's only designated for disadvantaged businesses. But in order to qualify, you have to have, your business tax receipts.
Okay. So that, I tell you, that one was a tricky one for me. And I too was one of those people that was just doing stuff in the city until a grant came along, and I was like, oh my, I guess I have to apply for county as well. So I missed out on that opportunity, but now I'm both, so I'm legal.
Okay.
So next question, what other license certificates do I need to have and to operate a business? But backtrack, before you answer that, I did want to ask this question with regards to the business tax. I recently know someone that applied for a business tax that's a nonprofit and was told that's not necessary in the city, at least. Can you talk a little bit to nonprofits as to, why is that the case?
So not to go into detail, I'm going to give a blanket response.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When it comes to nonprofits operating in the county and the city, you definitely need to check with the city and county's zoning. In most cases, to see what's needed, because what you'll find out as a business owner, the county wants something different and they got a different process, and the municipality wants something different and they got a different process.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay. So that there's definitely a different thing going on between for-profit and nonprofit.
Yes.
So, okay, back to the question in hand. What other license certificates do I need to operate a business?
So, you may need an accessory use license, right? So, accessory use license, if you are operating a business out of your home, you will need, in a municipality, you will need an accessory use license, which means that they will send someone out, do an inspection of the area or the room or the location you're working from in your home and issue you a license if it passes inspection.
Okay.
I mentioned this previously that if you have a brick and mortar location where you have people from the public coming to a commercial space, you will need a certificate of occupancy, right? So what oftentimes happens is when you buy a commercial space, you usually build it out to meet the specs of the business that you're operating. So at the moment that you build out this location, you get a permit and then different things like that, they take away the CO, the certificate of occupancy, because you're modifying the internal structure of the business.
Mm-hmm.
So once you complete this modification, you have to have the inspector and everyone come out to inspect to make sure that the structure and that you have, did inside is sound from an engineering and building code standpoint. And then if that's the case, they will issue you the certificate of occupancy.
Okay.
As I previously stated, also, depending on the business type, you may need an occupational license to operate. And that's something that's personally attached to you and not necessarily a brick and mortar location. So
an occupational license, you would learn through your training that you need that. So for example,
of course, yeah.
That's what the next
a dentist, cosmetology, lawyers, doctors, sports agents, booking agents, just some of the ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
Accountants.
Okay.
CPAs.
Now, can I also add to all of these? I know you can't make a blanket statement, but it is very important that we mention all of these steps and licenses have a cost attached to them. So,
yes.
And it could be on the industry you're in, I might add.
Right. So I want to say this about the occupational license. So each license is regulated by a different agency. So when you talk city municipality, they have an agency that they have an office internally at the city town hall that collects fees for the municipality's city license, and the county has one as well. When it comes to occupational license, that's controlled by the Department of Professional Regulations, DPPR. I want to make sure that I got the acronym here. Department of Business Professional Regulations, but from an occupational license standpoint. So these are things that you're going to have to understand. Mm-hmm. So usually the accessory use license is taken care of in the same office as the business tax.
Right. Okay.
It's usually in the same office, and it's usually, if you're in a municipality, the municipality usually collects that fee. If you're in the county,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
So if you're in the county only collects your the tax receipt.
So I've even been in a circumstance, and by the way, I want to say hello to my sorority sister, Melanie. Hi, thank you for joining us today. So I've even been in a situation where it's not me per se, but someone owning a brick and mortar had to go through a license, an occupancy license that required certain things just around his sign, his signage, and the many departments he had to go to and through, and each time he had to go to and through those departments, he had to pay something. I mean, it was literally a situation where he'd go to a department, they give him a receipt, he'd go pay for it, then he'd have to go to another department, he'd go pay for it. So, I don't think folks really realize there's
okay. So I'll spend some time there.
Yeah.
So each municipality has a building code that they have set up. So whenever you go into a commercial space, if you're hanging sign, like literally when you go into a commercial space and you got to do a build out, aside from permitting, you have to get your plans approved by the city municipality, right? Every aspect. So it has to align with the business with the business code of the county or the city municipality.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do the build out and you complete the build out, there's an inspection, right? So they're not going to. It's on you to get a sound GC. If you got an experience in sound GC, that's really, really good. When I'm saying GC, I'm saying general contractor.
Right.
That's what. So if you got a good general contractor that's experienced working in the city municipality, they're going to know the ins and outs of everything there is to know. That's going to save you money on the back end. But a good general contractor costs money. So what oftentimes happens is you have business owners that try to cut corners and
do it themselves.
Maybe do it themselves or get a general contractor on the cheap.
Right. That doesn't know how to manipulate that
doesn't have the experience in the city. That doesn't have the experience doing, renovating commercial properties at a level that you need them to. So what I will say, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, right? So initially you got this general contractor for the cheap, doesn't have the experience working in the city, doesn't have the experience doing the renovations that you need them to do, right? So you spend a lot of money having them do this work that when the city inspector come out, everything fails. Right? So now from a signage standpoint, like you mentioned, the sign is not diagrammed right. The sign size is not right. The sign location is not right. So now you have to, have all these multiple inspections that cost money.
Right.
Coupled with the fact that now you got to go get a general contractor that know what they're doing to come out and fix all the stuff that your general contractor on the cheap screwed up or didn't do right.
So it's double cost. And these are all expenses sitting here talking to this gentleman he had not expected. So it was definitely dipping into his budget every time he went to a new department. He was losing it.
Right. But also you think about it like this, right? Time value of money. So the entire time that he's having money sunk into, this capital project, he's not even open for business to make money to recoup the money.
Exactly. He can't open doors. So it's literally just money coming out of his account. So
yeah, it's lack of planning.
Right. Exactly. And expertise. We talked about that last time. Let's knowing
what you don't know.
Knowing what you don't know. That might be one of those areas that I don't have a brick and mortar, thank God. But if I did, just listening to him, I know I would try to figure out how to get a good GC because it does make a huge difference. It really does.
Well, it does. Yeah, it does.
So does your business need financial control mechanisms? Tell us what that means.
So,
you're giggling, you're laughing.
Okay, so I will go into this question. I will open up the answer to this question with this. Folks should ask themselves, do my personal life need financial control mechanisms?
That's a good question.
Right?
That's
right. Because before an entrepreneur, a business owner ever own a business, in a sense, they're the CEO of themselves.
Right.
Right. Okay. So, I'm laughing because when I go talk to a lot of business owners and I say, hey, you got a profit and loss statements, where are your financials, how do you track your money? They're looking at me like I'm speaking a different language. So then I switch it up and I say, do you have a personal budget at home? Let me see your budget that you use for your house. And they're looking at me like, I don't have a budget, right? So I said, okay. So the mere fact that a lot of people that are in business don't have personal budgets for themselves and their cost of living to operate their primary business, which is their home and their personal life, Um, it is a big reason why when I go into businesses and I mention the word financial control mechanisms, they're looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" Right?
Right.
So with a lot of the bills plot, they're bank statements, right? So when they do that, I say, well, let me ask you a few questions, like, you know, are you making money? They would say, yeah, I'm making money. So when they say that, I'll start doing like a cost of what it, writing out a list of things that cost for them to do business in, what the products they're selling, and I verse it against the revenue, and they'll see that they're losing money, right?
Right.
And most businesses will tell you, if you say, hey, what problems are you having? They'll say, I need money.
Absolutely.
I need money.
Absolutely.
And in most cases, that's not the case. In most cases, they don't have the financial control mechanisms in place to see if they're initially making money, right? So with these mechanisms in place, they don't know if the business is making, they don't know if the business have enough cash resources. Remember, we talked last week about, really counting out the cost of what it's going to cost to operate the business, right? So if that's done properly, what your cash resources are initially before you start the business. The other thing when we talk about financial control mechanisms is, are you collecting your money fast enough to pay your debts, right? So a good example of that, just to kind of put everybody on the same page with understanding what I'm saying by that, is to think of COVID, right? So when COVID hit, there were different things that happened with, the economy. A lot of folks got laid off. A lot of people's hours got cut short. But guess what? It stopped. The bills.
Right. I still want my money.
the bills kept coming in. So it's no different than a business, right? If you're not collecting your revenue fast enough to pay your business debt, you're going to find yourself in a bad financial place, right? So it's looking at it's having those moments and having those mechanisms in place that allows for you to instantaneously, at any given time, to look and say, hey, am I collecting money as quick as I'm paying my debts? Because it's going to create a cash crunch, right? It's going to create a situation to where you're highly leveraged, right? So another thing that financial control mechanisms allows you to do is to look at your debt to income ratio, right? So the famous question, is your business making money? Most folks will say it is. So when you do a debt to income ratio, it's not. Right. But if you're actively tracking your debt to income ratio, that allows for you to look at the position of your business from a financial health standpoint at any given time, right? The big thing that a lot of businesses are finding out when it comes to the importance of financial control mechanisms is when they try to go get business loans or grants, right? So just to not go down the rabbit hole, but to talk a little bit about grants. So folks hear grants, they think free money. True, it is, but what don't get talked about is meeting the requirement.
Right, exactly.
All grants, despite the fact of grants being free money, all grants go through some form of underwriting. Right, and believe it or not, city municipalities and county municipalities have millions and millions of dollars that they were unable to fund small businesses because the absence of financial control mechanisms.
Right. I think this shined a really big light on that.
Right, but despite that, you still have folks that aren't racing to get these mechanisms in place. So I'm pretty sure a lot of the listeners have heard of the PP loan, right?
Right.
Because of the lack of financial control mechanism, there was like $400 million of PP loans left on the table.
Right.
That couldn't be accessed because a lot of your small business owners didn't have financial control mechanisms in place.
Well, okay, so let's speak to that just a little bit. I know a lot of what I heard was when you are the chief innkeeper, the dog walker, the janitor, and everything's got to be done in meeting the needs of the customer. How are you able to stop, drop, and get yourself prepared to access these resources? it's just time, and especially in manpower. What
Right.
would you say to a business owner who needs that extra hand, that extra helping hand to meet those needs, to be prepared for those opportunities?
Well, I would say two things. I would say number one, if you're comfortable with number one, I would say you need to spend after hours working on that administrative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, if you're comfortable with accounting, finance, um, type of subject matter, you can do it yourself. If you're not comfortable with that kind of stuff, you need to go out and pay someone that's competent to do that stuff for you, right? When the PP loan first came out, and this was in the news, when it first came out, a lot of these big corporations quickly got the money.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They were able to do that because their accountant had their personal accountant had all the paperwork needed to get the loan.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
We've done applications for folks to get the PP loan, and it takes forever and a day to complete the application because they don't have any of the stuff that's needed. They don't have the P&L. They don't have balance sheets.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have, and all this stuff has to be audited. It's not things that are made up. These are documents that have to be audited. And what that means is an accountant has to verify the accuracy of these financials.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of small business owners that have never gone to an accountant, right? They've traditionally filed things to a Schedule C.
Right.
To the very least, they don't have a profit and loss statement.
Right.
Right. That's been audited. So they've run into that problem. So the resources are there. It's just accessing the resources, which all goes back to the business owner not having these financial control mechanisms in place, right? It also kind of tells the underwriter, when you have these mechanisms in place, how responsible you are, how well the business is doing. Because at the end of the day, with these grants, they need to report to someone,
mm-hmm.
and they want to report successes. Now, when it comes to getting financing from the bank, is a different story. The bank is a lot more stringent because the bank want all your financials. The bank want the bank going to want the profit and loss. They're going to want to know what kind of collateral you have. They're going to know do you have the capacity. They're going to want to know you have collateral, capacity, character, capital, and are the conditions met, right?
Because they want their money back.
They want their money back. They're not in the business of owning a bakery.
So in your opinion, though, in talking about this PPP loan, because like I said, I think it really shined a light on those businesses who were not prepared. And yourself were saying some of them are still not being prepared. Right. Do you think we need to, because I know you and I have talked about in our market, there's sort of really been a push to say everybody's ready to be an entrepreneur. And that's not necessarily true. So does there need to be a rethink of how we are assessing small businesses and really who should be the target for that, for really identifying people who are ready for that?
Well, I think they're going through that right now with this round of funds that the government just issued out, and a lot of the organizations are issued out. They're doing that now, because they need the successes. So they're definitely vetting businesses that are in different life cycles of their business and financially healthy.
Right, exactly. So now we are seeing that demonstration of, okay, maybe you're just not where you think you are in terms of that business development.
Definitely.
Okay. So so I promised I'd get you off by 10:45. But it's 10:49, and there is one other question. Do we want to wait and leave that one for next week? Let's do
that. Yeah, let's leave that one for next week when we talk about innovation, because I think it falls more in line with the beginning topic of innovation.
Yeah, we'll leave everybody with a cliffhanger. We're trying to be like the Dallas of Just Talking Business.
Right.
So thank you very much for this information. Again, it has been even a learning experience for me, and I've gone through some of this stuff, but now I'm rethinking, like, should I think back and do some stuff a little different? Could I have done some stuff a little differently and save myself a lot of grief? Before we go, though, I would like for you, and I didn't do this last week, please tell people how they can get in touch with you, because I do think, there is a lot of wealth and information there.
So if you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me at www.burdhamgroup.com, one word. And what I will do is I will initially help you resolve one business problem free of charge. Whatever it is, I will help you resolve it. I will advise you on how to resolve the issue.
That's cool. Okay. That's good information. And I'll be calling you later.
Right. So you can also send your question to me at jjones@burdhamgroup.com.
And I
Stephanie, if you want to
do that.
Okay, yeah. So if Stephanie, if you can figure out a way to kind of put that information out,
we will.
That would be great.
We will. So thank you again. We will see you here next week, same time, Tuesday, 10 a.m. And next week is about innovation. And just in short, scale up.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, like I said, that was a wealth of information for me, and I hope it was for you. And I hope you will take what you learned in the last 2 episodes and kind of go back and put together your own checklist to see where you are, where you stand, and what you may need some help with. And then give Jermaine a call. He's already offered to help you with your first situation. So I think that's actually wonderful. I think it's a great opportunity for everyone. So quick, short housekeeping notes. As I mentioned, we'll be back here same time next week. Innovation, which is about scale up. You are already in business. Now you're trying to figure out how to thrive and survive. That's the conversation we're going to have next week. If you want to follow up and go back and look at some of our past shows, in particular, the first 2 shows of this part 3 series. You can find this on our YouTube channel. Hi, Viola. Nice to see you again. You can go to our YouTube channel. You can find it under Stephanie Creates, but Just Talking Business, Google that, and you will be able to access all of our shows. I want to make this special announcement. We've been talking about this, but next Tuesday is the day we are really going to get this going. We are launching the Just Talking Business website. On that website, you'll get access also to all of the shows that we have gone through. So there's a lot of folks that have given some great information and some business owners that have shared their experiences and have been willing to be very open and share their experiences that you can learn from in every industry. And we will continue to do that and add that content. You can either get that through audio or you can get that through video. So if you're riding in your car, you still may be able to listen to some of the great information that is out there. We're also going to be doing more shows going into February. Maybe not as frequently as we were before, but we are really trying to make sure we get you information that will help you build your business and help you during your pivot as you're developing your pivot plan. So stay tuned for that. Also next Tuesday, we are going to start a series of accountability groups through Clubhouse initially. Maybe we will do something through Zoom. We've done one actually where we will allow business owners who are interested and need the support, need some kind of networking support to come together, share some of their concerns in business, maybe bring a subject matter that is of concern to them to the group and let the group be a brainstorm and a source of experience to help guide you through as you are building your business. That will be through Clubhouse, so stay tuned. You'll see that coming out on Facebook, inviting you to participate through Clubhouse. And last but not least, we have started a Just Talking Business Facebook group. So please go in today and sign up. Wealth of information again, as the Facebook page is. We'll keep that information about grants and loans coming. We'll keep information about good tips and business ideas and some of the tips from our past guests. We will keep that information coming and flowing. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you again for tuning in. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us through Just Talking Business. Have a great day.